The amount of times that I've even talked to guests and they're just like, oh, I just wanted to end up looking like this lady, and that's why I got started in bodybuilding, and then they don't know, whatever that lady was doing to get that look, or just the whole genetic factor, as well. And it's just, yeah, it definitely, yeah.
Five factors that go into doing well in bodybuilding. Genetics. We cannot escape it. Your bones are formed in a certain way, and your joints are located in a certain distance from each other, and your muscle insertions are in certain places in accordance with how you're structured, and you have a certain height, certain width in your bone structure, and your the shape of your muscles, and there's no getting around that. That is your DNA. Also included in genetics is how your hormonal system is. So some people are more prone to holding water than others. Some have different fat cell structures. Have different levels of testosterone versus estrogen versus progesterone. Some have certain thyroid issues. Our bodies are different, and genetics determine. This is a huge part of bodybuilding. Genetics. We have to just accept it. I'm 4'11". If I was 3 inches taller, I would have turned pro sooner. And I wouldn't be told by judges that I look like a square, because I would be taller, so they'd be able to see that I do have a small waist. I just have big glutes, that because I'm so short, that's what they see. They see the glutes and they see my lats, and they don't see my waist because I'm so short and the angle that they're at. And if it's a judge who's not used to me, they don't know how to see me. So judges who have judged me for years and years and years, they understand that better and might look at me a little bit differently. But a new judge who has not seen me before, I can see how they would say I'm a square when I'm not. And that is, I'm 4'11". Again, if I was 2 to 3 inches taller, I would have different placings. So genetics is one thing. Athletic background is another. Whether you're a gymnast, tennis player,
If you're a gymnast, you're like 5 sets ahead of everyone else. That's just a ridiculous foundation. Yeah.
a track athlete, football player, and depending on what, you can look at different positions of football, and you can see how bodies are shaped differently, because the body is shaped a certain way that goes with the movements that they're doing over and over and over again, and the type of stability that they're needing and strength. So here for me, I was a nerd. I didn't do anything. I didn't do any sports whatsoever, any activity. I was always just this little tiny thing. I was 92 pounds before I started lifting weights. And so once I was 18, I started lifting weights, and I started off in powerlifting, and that's my background. Now my genetics allow both my parents have big lower bodies, big glutes and big quads. That runs in my family. So mix that with powerlifting, and you understand where my lower body has come from and why my upper body is not quite as big. So those are two factors. So genetics and athletic background. Diet, nutrition, what you put into your mouth, that is a huge factor. So how you eat, what you eat, how often you eat, how much you eat, all of that. That's an important category. The workouts, your activities, your weightlifting, cardio, all of that, that is also. And all of those things end up combining together. And then you have this fifth thing that nobody really wants to talk about, and that's the drugs. And for anybody who says, well, the drugs really aren't an important part, or they don't need to be a part of the discussion, or I was able to do this, I could have done it even without the drugs, or whatever. So most of the competitors in the industry now started with drugs within a year to 2 years of lifting weights. A lot of the competitors are young. They're in their 20s. They don't have enough experience of knowing what their bodies could do off the drugs versus on the drugs. And what I remind people of is that until until I turned 41, I was 100% natural. I did not take a single thing. I was drug tested in multiple different organizations and federations in both powerlifting and in the bodybuilding industry. And I had about 14 years of competing without using anything. And I can tell you, I really do feel that I took my body as far as it possibly could. In fact, I know I did because my testosterone stopped. My body stopped producing testosterone. So I took my body as far as I possibly could, and got as lean as I could and got as much muscle onto my body as I could as a natural competitor. I started on hormone replacement therapy in January of 2014. I competed in the North Americans later that year, and I got a sixth place spot in the open division and a fifth place spot in the over 35 division. So I was qualified to come back to nationals again. And then in 2015, I competed at the NPC Universe and earned my pro card, not in the masters classes. I competed in the over 35 and over 40, and I did not get my pro cards in those classes. I placed third and fourth, respectively, oddly enough. I got second place in the open class. I was 18 years older than any of the other girls that I was standing on stage with. I was on drugs. I did not turn pro until I was on drugs. I did not take testosterone in order to gain muscle. I took testosterone for my health because my body was not producing it. It was almost to zero. And I had been having symptoms for well over a year. But taking testosterone allowed my body to put on the upper body muscle that I had always struggled to put on. Now, it also meant that I had additional water retention issues. I already was somebody who dealt with water retention issues. My body is very sensitive in that regard. And so testosterone, when you take testosterone, that definitely, you do have water retention issues. And so, as a result of going on testosterone therapy, that meant for competing purposes, I did need to do other things in order to balance out what I was doing with testosterone for my health. Um, and I talked a little bit about that in my last live, or not my, yeah, my last one, I think. I talked a little bit, and I'm starting to talking about it. And so I'll do that more on my Instagram, on my live, and start talking specifically and the whole progression. But the thing that I can tell you is, and I'll be on testosterone therapy for the rest of my life. That's once a week, I do a shot and I do just enough to keep my levels at a normal place. Um, but whatever I was doing throughout those 5 years that I was competing and on gear, one thing would get added in. And I was able to see what that one thing did and be able to know how it affected me, how my body reacted, what were the drawbacks, what did I not like, what was I worried about, and then how was it interacting with something else, and then another thing could get added in. But it wasn't a grocery list. I've seen from top level coaches and not top level coaches. So guru coaches, not guru coaches. I've seen from multiple coaches. I've seen the emailed list of drugs that are given. Get these things. It's a grocery list. I had a coach in 2017 that when I got done with the Arizona Pro Show, that coach said, okay, that was good. Now I want you for off season. I want you to get on Primo and EQ. And I said, we have had this conversation before, and I've already told you where my line in the sand is. What are you talking? Why are you even suggesting this to me? I'm not going to take anything without a prescription. Everything is supervised by my doctor. You're telling me to take Primo, and I know I can't get a prescription for it. And I don't even think you can get real Primo. Every single doctor I've spoken, my own doctor, I've had two different doctors that I've worked with who have said, you can't, you're not going to get real Primo. I've talked to other competitors who have said it. I've talked to coaches who've said it. I've talked to girls who said that they took Primo and that was when their voice changed. And yet there are top level people in this industry who are still recommending it. But a lot of people, when they take Primo, they're actually taking Test Pro. And so I was like, I'm not doing that. And I've told you that before. And I don't even know what EQ is. And I'll have to talk to my doctor. But if I can't get a prescription for it, I'm not doing it. It's an automatic no. And I talked with my doctor and nope, can't get a prescription for it. And nope, he doesn't recommend it. Not for me, not for what I want, doesn't think I need it. And so here I had this 20 to 30 something year old coach who instantly jumping on that wagon, take this. And a lot of times, there I was, I had just placed fifth with Olympians. Three of the girls who had beat me were Olympians going on stage the next week at the Olympia. It is real easy to go, I'm almost there. I'm almost there. Okay. Okay. Do you think that'll help? Will I win? Will I make it on the Olympia stage? And to just go blindly into it and do it. And I said, no, I'm not doing it. Like it's not worth it to me. I remember I started to first say that I know what the difference is. There is a stark difference between taking stuff and not taking stuff. And I know it. I know 14 years of not taking stuff and competing and 5 years of taking stuff and competing. And I know exactly what the difference is. So it is a factor. It needs to be included in. It needs to be discussed openly. I know Stephanie Flesher, she talks about it. Jamie Kinder talks about it. Kudos to them. Other girls need to step up and talk about it and not just go, oh, you shouldn't do this and you shouldn't do that when we know behind the scenes that you've done this. So instead of tisking at others, why don't you come out and just talk about your own experience? Right now, the bodybuilding world and fitness and wellness is very much into telling others how to live their lives. Telling others and being like these life coaches, and I'm going to give you this real long advice about what you shouldn't do or should do. You're not my therapist and you're not my mom. So don't do that. Instead, this is your page and talk about your experience and what you learned. If you want to talk about, I personally was making excuses and I was doing things a certain way, and this was how I decided to change this. Awesome. Somebody will probably learn from that a lot better than the preachy, stop making excuses for yourself. You're just being lazy, whatever it might be that they're saying. I was going to say something else.
No, I know you're really passionate about this, and that's why I love having you on, because it's just, you're so open and honest when in an industry that isn't. But I was going to ask if you think about what you're going to say, obviously just pipe in and say it, but why do you think, especially for women, it's so much more taboo? Because there are men that talk about their drug use almost like with pride. They're just like, oh my God, yeah, I had to do this just to look like this. And it's just a completely different thing, I think, for the men. Why do you think for the women, it's just so much more taboo when it's just, if you look at the opposite side, I mean, it's a lot more, everyone knows really with the men, like, oh yeah, I take this and I do that. If you could just, a lot of times you can just go up to them and ask, and they'll be, oh yeah, I take this. Yeah.
Probably brag and say they take more than what
Yeah.
they have.
Yeah.
I don't know. Why are women still having to hide their tampons when they get ready to go to the restroom at a restaurant? Like, there is something about
talking to the wrong person with that one. I have no idea why. I know.
No, it's a rhetorical question.
No, I know. I was just making a joke.
It's a rhetorical question that is, there's a certain level of expectation held for women, and women are supposed to be, even in this day and age, there's still these certain expectations. And I think, ironically, in the bodybuilding world, for all of the like strength and independence that there is still this um there is still this antiquity, stereotype of what women are and should be that still exists in bodybuilding, and so it's a really confusing dichotomy that there is, because it should be for somebody who can lift that much weight and can do what we do with our bodies, but when a coach tells us what to do, we just go, "You're the coach. I don't want to question you." That is, I don't understand. It perplexes me so much. But I'm also somebody that I've always been. I don't understand why this is around. This logically doesn't make sense. Could you explain it to me? I've always been like that. And I don't have a problem asking. And especially as I get older, I'm like, but why? Like, that's ridiculous. That doesn't make sense. Can you explain the logic to me? And I just think that women just don't speak up, and they also, I think that they're worried. Women are worried about, well, what is somebody going to think of me? Appearances, image. Um, but I don't want my hard work ignored. And I'm not saying that because somebody took drugs that they didn't have to work hard. Like I said, there are five things that develop the bodies that you see on the pro stage. Five things. Not one of them is more important than the other. But you can't, there's only five. And so you can't just take one away. And that's the thumb. So you can't just take that away. You're not going to be able to function as well. And we've got to be able to talk about it so it gets done in a way that is healthy. And maybe if it's talked about, then maybe the criteria also maybe changes a little bit, so that there is some responsibility. I mean, somebody said, after I think Jake Wood had said, well, we really need to look at like with the conditioning, like maybe not have it to this extent. And somebody was like, um, a lot of competitors who are well conditioned got upset. And it's like, just because you're somebody who gets conditioned and dry easily without taking certain things, it doesn't mean that everybody else is just a lazy SOB and they're just fat and they just need to work harder. No, if I am somebody that I deal with a water issue on show day, I know what it's like to not, my body never stays it is ever changing. It can change in a minute. It's why I don't want a coach who just tells me what to do. A coach, absolutely, if they're going to work with me, they have to work with me and be by my side and having open dialogue with me and collaborating, not dictating. Um, and But just because I hold some water, it doesn't mean I didn't diet enough. There's no fat in my ankles. So if I'm holding water in my ankles, I mean, water seeps in. That's Our bodies are made of water. The muscle, the everything is made of water. So it, in my opinion, the divisions are too. Bodybuilding is meant to be extreme. The other divisions came around in order to provide avenues without extreme, and now those avenues are gone. Bikini is fixing things. Bikini is not extreme, but the other divisions are extreme. They're as extreme as they possibly can be, and they've gone past their criteria's glass ceiling. And it doesn't. I can look at those physiques and be like, whoa, that's impressive. But I also look at it and go, but that doesn't fit the criteria. It's really, really impressive. but it doesn't fit the criteria.
I saw in one of your posts you talked about the wellness division and how it's something that like you could see that maybe you would have done that. What is your opinion on that just as a division? Because it does seem like it has added, a little bit for people who, were, too big for bikini or too not as good enough for figure. But what is your overall thought just on that as a whole division?
It's not what I thought it was going to be. I had seen where there was a pro who had competed in one of the earlier wellness shows, and she did not do as well as I think she would have thought she should have or could have. And I also had felt that she should have been higher. I really liked her physique and felt that it was closer to what I imagined wellness to be, what I had seen from other, in other places. And if she had done well, it would have been a good omen for me and my structure. And but I think wellness has come charging out of the gates already. Like it's already um the level of conditioning is pretty out there. And it's not just bikini with bigger glutes. It's not. Um there are wellness competitors who rival some of the women's physique uh, competitors' conditioning. Of course, there's women's physique competitors with their conditioning that rival female bodybuilding. Um, so I think right now we've got definitely on the conditioning level, you have a blending and blurring of the lines from division to division. The only one is I do think that with bikini, they have really, really worked hard to try to it's gotten a little loose and then it's gotten reeled back in. But I also think bikini is such a it's a huge part of the business. So it makes sense to put effort into ensuring that that division is really well controlled in terms of what they want. So I do think that with bikini they have done as best as they can to keep it from getting too crazy. I do think that at the Olympia for wellness, uh, they definitely the choice that they made for who was winning. That's who I would have chosen. I would have taken the third place girl, and I would have put her second. Actually, I would have liked to have seen her first. So I think that there is an awareness that some of the girls are coming in extremely hard for the division. Um, so I just I know for me, with how hard they are wanting the lower bodies, my upper body will be so shredded um, that I mean, I will have striations and veins throughout my upper body in order to achieve that lower body conditioning. So, what I looked at was, and it's funny because in 2019, at the beginning of the year, when they were starting, it was starting to kind of there were whispers about wellness making it to the U.S. and I had asked my coach. I said, I do you think I could do wellness? Because I would. I would drop women's physique, and I would do it. I don't want this upper body muscle. I just didn't want the back. I didn't want a big back. I wanted a well defined back and a well shaped back, but I did not want the bulk and width that was winning the shows, and my body doesn't necessarily do it well either. And so I was wanting size coming to come off of my upper body anyways. And so I was like, I would switch. I would do wellness. If it comes out this year, I would definitely do it. And my coach was like, well, let me look into it and see. And he asked a couple of people, and those people who knew my physique, they were like, nope, tell her not to switch. because they were thinking wellness was going to be something different. Um, but um, when what I thought about was, okay, so in women's physique as a pro, I have placed. I've placed in the winner's circle multiple times, so I have that experience. I have medals, I have trophies, I have those memories, I have that experience. Um, why would I do I really think I'm gonna win? And I know some people say, "Well, you need to go into a show thinking you can win." And I'm just a realist. I don't deal with things glass half full or glass half empty. I'm like, what's in the glass? And is it of use to me? Um, and what do I need to do with those contents? So I knew in women's physique I was never going to win a show. If I was to win a show in women's physique, then that would be an announcement that women's physique is going in a different direction. So I could do well in women's physique, but the likelihood of me winning a show, unless everybody else is kind of off or shaped similarly to me, which was my physique is shaped very differently. Like I've heard it from coaches and judges and other competitors. There's really just not the way I'm shaped is not consistent with what is in women's. Like there's not many physiques that look like mine. And so, except maybe in wellness now. And so I just thought about like, why would I be competing? Why would I go and do all of this and go into wellness for what? My ego? So that I can sit here and go, oh, I did it. I competed in figure, I competed in female bodybuilding, I competed in women's physique, and I competed in wellness, and I did bikini way at the very beginning in the galaxy. So, what? So that I can brag about that or add that to my resume? Like, do I want to spend thousands of dollars and go through the whole prep and all the stress of how's my body going to look? Are the judges going to like it? What are the judges going to say? What's it going to be like standing on stage and waiting for the call outs? Um, and going through that rat race again of what if they tell me to make changes and they're not changes I want to make? Am I going to go down that rabbit hole again? So every time I watch a show and think, I mean, that's my physique. I could do this. I have to sit back and go, but why? Why? What are all the reasons why I've stepped away from competing? And why would I go against those reasons just to do a division just because my body fits it? And so that's where I've just over and over said no. And it's really hard because also like I had somebody who had reached out to me and said, oh, you should do the Masters show in Pittsburgh next year, and we do Masters Wellness together. And at first I was like, oh, well, when is it? And maybe, I don't know, should I? And then I was going, what is this? Is it like cocaine? Like I get it, it is an addiction. Competing is an addiction. So let me deal with the things that I need to deal with that aren't quite right in my life and stop using bodybuilding as a band aid or ointment that isn't really going to solve the problem. And that's what I think a lot of people do that. I did the Legion Sports, Roxy had died, and then I competed. She died 10 days before the Arizona show. Ironically, I was not really wild about competing during that prep. Like I just was like, ugh. I was really good, but I was like I just wasn't into it. And then Roxy died, and then it kind of like I had like purpose. I'm going to keep going to show that I'm tough and in the face of adversity, I can finish a goal and finish what I started, and I've got something to show to myself. And then after that show, which I did not place very well, after placing fifth there last year. But the girls were just so much bigger and harder, and then I made a decision to go ahead and do the Legion, which was about 3 or 4 weeks later, and saying, well, I want to learn more about my body and take what we learned about the Arizona show. But it was also to keep my mind off of the grief that I was going through. Like, it kept me busy and it kept me away from home. So I think that sometimes people compete and they don't truly understand why they're competing. And then if you don't investigate that, because it's not just you want to see your body shaped a certain way. Because if you want that, you don't need to step on stage for that. So you have to really sit and ask yourself, why am I willing to change my entire life and put in this amount of money and this amount of sacrifice and this amount of time and this amount of health hazard to do this? Why? And everybody has a different reason. But then to examine that and understand that that why changes from show to show and year to year. And to start and look at that trend. What do you notice as a pattern of your whys? And at what point do you need to go ahead and fix whatever it is that you need to fix rather than throwing in another show? Which is kind of where I was at. Would you stop?
Yep, really wise words. And I wanted to, ask, so what does your health and fitness look like post bodybuilding now? I mean, with your workouts, do you still do some of the same things that you did with bodybuilding, or have you mixed things up? And like with nutrition, obviously, you're not going to be probably restricting yourself as much, but what has been the overall difference like as you've made that adjustment to, sort of a post bodybuilding healthy lifestyle?
I mean, I skip the gym a lot. I feel really guilty and useless and just like, what's wrong with me? Um, but a lot of times when I've skipped, the next day I feel better. My weight has dropped. I look better. So I just kind of remind myself, probably when I was competing, I probably needed to skip the gym more often. Um, I I don't lift real heavy for so I don't do as heavy as I can with back. I train triceps like maybe once every 6 weeks. Um, I train biceps every other week, do like 2 or 3 exercises maybe. I don't shoulders I train. I go through periods of training them harder and then not. Lower body though, I do that regularly and I usually do 2 lower body days a week. I mean, for me, I want to look like I'm getting ready for a wellness show, but I'm not. And that's what people I get asked a lot, like, so what show are you getting ready for? Or are you competing this year? And then when I go, no, I mean I used to, but I don't do that anymore. Like I've had to make myself say it. It used to be, oh, not this year, or not right now. But I started making myself get used to saying to people, I don't do that anymore. Um, and but a lot of people will be like, oh, why not? Like your physique is ready. You should. I mean, it's screaming to be on stage. You should do it. Why? Are you gonna pay for all the expenses of it? Like why should I do it? Why can't I just look the way I look? It's like when somebody does their makeup and you're like, oh, did you go to a party? No, I sat at home. Well, why'd you do your makeup? Because I wanted to. I wanted glitter on my face. Can't I do things that I want just because I want them? I just want to look a certain way. So I've always looked this way. I've always I for it's most of my life. I started lifting weights at 18. So for 30 years I've been doing this. I'm not going to just stop. Um but nutrition wise, I eat 5 meals a day instead of 6. I eat protein with every meal. My carbs are still like oats and potatoes or rice or but I'll have flour tortillas, or I'll have, I will have bread here and there. I'll have cheat meals if I want a cheat meal. If I have a goal and I'm like, I want to go 2 or 3 weeks without a cheat meal, then I'll go 2 or 3 weeks without a cheat meal. Um, if I want salad dressing on my salad, then I'll put it on my salad. I just go by, do I like how I look? What's more important to me right now? To eat this or to look the way that I want to look? I'd rather eat this right now. Or, nope, I really want to look a certain way and I'm going to stick with that goal. So I don't have that impending doom of, I only have 3 more weeks to get my body to look a certain way. There's only 3 more leg days that I have, and it feels like the earth is going to end. That's what I felt like. I was just on constant deadline mode when I was competing. So to get away from that is good. And I don't check every moment to see if the veins in my abs are still there. So um,
Neither do I. And I mean, you are so knowledgeable about all this, and literally, if anyone wants to get started in bodybuilding, I honestly think they should just message you and just talk to you. But what advice would you have for someone who just says like, "Hey, this seems like something I might be interested in." What do you have, like, what would be the best piece of advice that you have to offer for someone who's thinking about maybe giving this sport a try?
um, insist on interviewing coaches verbally, on a phone call, a Zoom would be a good Zoom, or Skype or FaceTime, and set up your questions. Interview. You're hiring somebody. Yes, you're hiring somebody who's going to sometimes tell you what to do. So you're both bosses and you're both clients. But you need to interview. But before you interview, you need to determine your questions, and you need to determine, what are your lines in the sand. What are you willing to do and what are you not willing to do realistically, both in terms of, if you're being told to eat a certain number of calories, like, what do you think? How far are you willing to go and why? And understand why you're willing to go that far. What are you worth? What are you willing to risk? Yeah, what are you willing to risk in order to achieve the goal? Why do you want this goal? And then interview and talk with the coaches, and it should be a solid 30-minute interview. It should be. And if a coach says no, I have a questionnaire you can fill out. Say, nope, you're not for me. And if they won't talk to you verbally, if they won't answer your questions, and if they seem like there's somebody who isn't going to continue answering your questions once they're hired, then do not hire them. Put them on a trial run, do a probationary period. Don't just sign up for like 6 months or a year or an entire prep. It might be cheaper. I mean, I offer a package rate, but maybe you want to try them out for 2 months. In 2 months, you'll know. Do get a posing coach. Be aware that the industry suffers from something I call emperor's new clothes syndrome. One person says a coach is amazing, wonderful, did wonderful things, and others all of a sudden go, oh, yes. And yet others can look and go, but they're not teaching the right thing. Or so be aware that the emperor's new clothes, I don't know if people know the story of the emperor's new clothes. Do you know the story?
Yes.
Okay. So basically, the emperor goes out without pants, but nobody wants to say it because they're too embarrassed to say it. And so everybody is like, oh, the emperor's new clothes look so great, but he has no pants on, and he too has fallen under the spell of believing he has clothes. And nobody wants to speak up or say anything, which is what our industry goes through, where everybody's like, she looks so great, and then behind the scenes, like, so, or everybody rides the coattails and talks somebody up. You have to understand there's waves. This person's a guru, that person's a guru. Don't go by that. Interview opposing coaches, interview whoever you're hiring, interview them and make a logical decision and get second opinions. But then once you make your decision, go ahead and stick with that person, but be involved. Don't just take things just because you were told to take things. Don't just eat things because you were told to eat things. Learn. Don't interrogate the coach, but ask in order to learn and become a more informed client. And always speak up and make sure you do your check-ins. Make sure that you tell your coach what's going on with you. Whatever it might be, always be honest with your coach. If it's drugs, less is better. And sometimes none is best. Understand that there's a lot that people are feeling and experiencing. They don't necessarily admit it on their social media, definitely not in the moment. Maybe a year later, they go, I remember crying so much during this period, but it was so worth it. I think that we forget how just much pain and sacrifice and exhaustion there is during a prep until you're back in the prep. But then nobody wants to admit it because we all want to seem tough. So understand that if you're having a tough time, everybody has had a tough time, and it doesn't make your tough time any less. You're not any less of a person if you say, hey, you know what, this getting 4 hours of sleep and doing 3 hours of cardio on 900 calories is really negatively impacting my job. You're not a quitter if you decide to push off competing because you want to do it the healthy way. You're not a quitter. You're a decision maker. Understand all the expenses. So what I do, I don't work with hardly any clients anymore, but what I have done in the past is I lay out, here's how much you're going to pay for a suit. Here's how much you're going to pay for jewelry. Here's how much you're going to pay for tanning, for hair and makeup, for skin upkeep, for supplements. If you're doing drugs, that's like my thing was anybody working with me, I would not. I'm not a doctor. I'm not going to tell you a single thing to do with anything that should be prescribed by a doctor. I'll tell you my experience, but I will not tell you what to do. But if you're going to be on drugs, you need to get blood work every 6 months. That's expensive. Insurance does not always cover. Insurance doesn't cover, TRT. It doesn't cover HRT. It doesn't cover some of the blood work that you're going to have to get for your hormone doctor. The amount, your grocery bill, your gym memberships, your coaching expenses, the entry fees, the understanding that you might need to enter more than one division. So you have even more fees. You have the organization fees. You have your travel and lodging fees. If you think that you're going to be able to do a show for less than $1,000, it's pretty tough. Okay. If you have to figure out if you're going to have to travel. Most national shows you're going to have to travel for. You're going to have to either fly or drive a long ways, which means you're going to have a longer hotel stay, which means you're also going to have Uber or Lyft or taxi or rental car. So you need to figure all of that out and understand that entire amount, and then figure out all the hours that you're going to have to spend. And then you have to look at what's going on in my life and can it all fit? And what about the people in my life? And do I have a mental health outlet? Do I have a therapist to talk to? There's an expense. I think a lot of people rely on their coaches as mental health. I can tell you as a coach who has had competitors who have had anxiety attacks and panic attacks, who go through depression, who are dealing with all sorts of esteem issues. And I've acted as a sounding board, and it's hard on your coach. That's a weight that you're putting on your coach. I mean, I did it to my coaches too. The relationship between a coach and a client is very different from in a lot of other sports, because we're dealing with our actual shaping of our bodies and how we look from head to toe, especially with women, just our hair and our face structure and our, I mean, it's still kind of a beauty pageant on the women's side of things. You do have to look, or you're supposed to look a certain way, or you want to look a certain way. Definitely in bikini, you need to be pretty, or at least have enough of the makeup and hair extensions to exhibit that beauty. And in the other divisions, there is this element of women being judged on their looks, and you have to get used to that. You have to understand that's a part of it. Are you prepared? Are you prepared to have every single part of you critiqued, examined? And how are you going to feel on the other side of it? So, and why do you want to do this? And you have to ask yourself why for every single show, every single season, every single year. You have to re-examine why, and you have to go through the whole expenditure thing again. Because if you don't, and you just wing it, which I've done, because a lot of people don't talk about this stuff, then you come out on the other side of it and you go, that was a lot for very little. Like, did I have to spend thousands upon thousands of dollars and put my health at risk in order to exhibit willpower? That's so you have to weigh that out. I mean, maybe set up a photo shoot first and see how you do with it before you commit to a show and have pressure. And then finally understand that just because you announce that you're doing a show, it is not blood in concrete. You can change your mind, and probably should change your mind if things are not going in the right direction. And don't be afraid to change your mind. It's not quitting, it's decision making. And even if you were to say, this isn't for me, that's okay too, because it's not. This isn't for everybody. Playing football is not for everybody. Um, Skydiving isn't for everybody. If you get to the top, if you get onto the plane and you go, yeah, I changed my mind, I don't want to do this. You have that right. You're not a quitter. You just made a decision that for your mental health. And if you get off that plane, you go, oh, no, I think I want to do it, then get on another plane and do it. Same thing with the show. Bodybuilding shows are like cockroaches, they're never going to go away. They will always be there. So if you miss a show, there will be 100 more the next year. Don't worry about it. Always there.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't have said it better myself, honestly. And I mean, Jodi, when we do have you on another year from now, where would you just like to be at in your life? I mean, I know you'll be getting close to turning 50, and just what are some goals that you have that you wish you had, or like an ideal world, where would you just like to be at, just mentally, or just, just in your overall life, where would you like to be at?
I would like to get back into a consistent writing habit, and maybe have at least enough of a short story collection or set of writings that I could bring it to a publisher to have examined, or decide to self publish, whatever I would decide. I would like to figure out where I want to go in terms of a career. I'm at a crossroads with that. Um, yeah, those are probably the two things. And I would like to feel better about myself than I do now. Um, and I would like to be able to feel like I competed as a bodybuilder and I did well, and I continue to shape my body the way that I want to. Um, and but I understand that that was a chapter, and I've got other chapters, and to know kind of, I guess I want to be well in the midst of writing other chapters and feeling confidence in knowing that I'm taking those chapters in a right direction. And so I know that was vague, but
Well, are there any sort of like when it comes to short stories, do you have a sort of genre that you like to write about the most, or you do like to mix things up?
I guess they're a little bit mixed up. The bodybuilding world does make it into my stories. Definitely, my professors were like, "You have something that almost no creative writers have," and so that world has to get in there. I think when I first started graduate school, I tried to stay away from it, and they were like, "I mean, it's a part of your life, and actually, it's a unique part that actually will draw people into your stories." So I do put a spin on the bodybuilding world and make it a little quirky, and I definitely play on the dysfunction. But my stories do deal with dysfunction. I've experienced a lot of dysfunction in my life, and so I like dealing with just seemingly regular characters that are just really dysfunctional and have quirks, and somehow bodybuilding of some way is involved in there.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. I mean, I will give you. I mean, say Jody. I mean, you were just such an inspiration. I mean, you're just so upfront and honest with everyone. You still, I mean, yeah, still to this day. I mean, it's just always a pleasure having you on and talking with you because you are just so honest and upfront, and more people need to be like that. And yeah, again, just thank you so much again for coming on. I really appreciate it.
you're welcome. Thank you for having me, and who knows what my hair will be doing.
Well, I was gonna ask you so. So you have like a mullet now, and I love that now. So what's been the hair history like for this last year?
Well, a year ago, I knew that I was wanting to get to the mullet. Um, so it definitely, once I stopped competing, I started growing my hair out. So I haven't discussed this at all, but in 2016, um, it was during the time that I actually was qualified for the Olympia. I was qualified for the Olympia for like 3 weeks. I kind of hang on to that. But I was dealing with losing my hair. And so on my lives, I'll go into kind of what happened that year. But definitely that was an eye opener where when you're in the shower and your hair just won't stop coming out, and I just remember crying and going, the Olympia is not worth it. I just I don't I don't care. This is not worth it. And I will not do whatever it takes to get to that stage. But I ended up cutting my hair into a short bob. I think that I saw it as way worse because it was happening to me, but others were like, we don't really notice it. Like, you can cover it well and you don't notice it. But I think it is something that a lot of competitors deal with is receding hairlines and hair loss and brittle hair, and so that is definitely, you have to, your hair is, it kind of gives signals of how healthy or unhealthy you are. So always listen and watch your hair. But anyways, but for competing for women's physique, I needed, because they judge you on your back, unlike with wellness and bikini. So I needed to make sure either my hair had to be long enough to move out of the way and stay out of the way, or it needed to be short enough so that you could see all of me and not cut me off. So I've had hair where it sits right at my traps and it makes me look shorter and boxier. So I did cut my hair. I was doing an inverted bob. And then I started growing that out. And That was a tough cut. I had to go in every 4 weeks to get that, the upkeep on it. So when I stopped competing, I started growing my hair out. And I changed it to where it was a more natural color because it was doing like black, almost black. And so just like a chocolate brown. And I started growing it out. And it first went through the shag stage, which I really wanted a shag. And so I loved that stage. And then it became like a shag, but with like the fringe bangs. And then we started going to a shullet, which was a shag and mullet having a baby. And which I love that too. And it was so versatile and so easy. And I could let my hair air dry. And this is naturally curly. Like I did not curl this. This is just naturally curly. So, um, yeah, just I kept bringing in pictures to my hairdresser, and she said, you keep showing me a mullet. Like, just admit it. You want a mullet. And I was like, yeah, but I'm kind of scared. Like, and she's like, don't be scared. And so this last time I said, let's just do it. I found two pictures I really liked, and I said, let's do it. And I mean, the whole time I was sitting there like, oh my gosh, I think I made a mistake. Did I make a mistake? And she's like cutting and cutting, and she won't stop cutting. And I'm like, my heart's like pounding. And then I looked in the mirror. I was like, oh my gosh, so cute. And I have such a little face. So, that was something else I didn't like about competing. I have such a tiny face. And so when I would diet down those last 4 weeks, I felt so ugly. My face would just be so sunken in. I looked aged. I looked older. My skin didn't look healthy, not a healthy color, not a healthy texture. So, yeah, I mean, my hairdresser has said since I stopped competing, my hair is way healthier. Been able to grow it long. My skin is healthier. I hardly ever have breakouts. Um, my sleep is better. So, but yeah, so and then we did color blocking. So I had a shocking yellow before, and then we went to like fall colors. And so I don't know. Throughout all my years of competing, my hair has been all sorts of colors, all sorts of styles. I don't have tattoos. I'm not going to get them. So I do crazy things with my hair, and it'll grow back.
I remember, yeah, you've probably had a different hair color like every time you've been on though too. But you did mention it, and that's the one thing I've been focused. Holy crap, your traps! Is that something that you train at all, or is that just genetic, naturally, just there?
I do some of that because I'm like hunched over.
Yeah, that too. But still, yeah,
Upright. No, I mean, I don't train my traps at all, but I think years of doing
yeah.
deadlifts. Everybody says that about my traps, but I mean, I think there's definitely competitors who have way huge, bigger traps. I think it's just because my collarbone my bones are small. So I mean, if I stand like this, then you don't really see the traps that much. I think it's all in how
Just
it's
like what,
like
just like,
I
yeah,
look really huge or
yeah.
it's normal
Okay,
back.
yeah, her biceps are still great though. I mean, she still has some of the best that we've had on the show, everyone. So, but I mean, yeah, that's just. But yeah, yeah. Look at that. That's ridiculous.
I'm still training and everything. So, but I just am not, like I said, I'm only taking testosterone, and so I just take my HRT. I take half a milligram of Arimidex in order to keep the testosterone from was it aromatizing. So that helps to keep that water retention down, and it just makes me feel better too. So that's my doctor's. Been that's what he's prescribed to me, and that's what I do. And but I mean, I take it's like this. It's like tiny amounts once a week, and I do my own shots, and I hate it. There's a lot of times that I have cried about it and been like, I just want to go back to my natural days, and I was happy with my body. I was just fine the way that I was, and um, did not. I had already kind of thought about taking drugs, made the decision not to, been okay with that decision. And this is, I'll be on testosterone for the rest of my life. When I try to take a little bit less, I'll notice that no, I need to go back to the level that I'm taking. So I try to like take it down a little bit or skip a day or, and, it's something that it's considered a controlled substance. So, not all doctors are going to prescribe it. I have to go twice a year to my doctor. It's not covered by insurance, so that's between $200 and $300 for the visit plus the blood work. Then I have to get the testosterone itself, and so that is almost $100 twice a year. So, you know, and it scares me because I think about what's going to happen when I'm in my 60s or 70s. What if I move? What doctor am I going to go to who's not going to maybe know my history? Um, what if they decide and change the rules about testosterone? But this is something that I need, just like somebody else might need insulin for diabetes or needs synthoid for thyroid, or Coumadin for, you know, a blood thinner. So this is a medication that I'm on, and I've always been so healthy, and I've never had to get on a medication. And it just, I hate that I'm having to be on a medication for the rest of my life. Like it worries me. So what I think that also has played a role of I don't want to continue doing things in bodybuilding that might make it so that I have to take other things or do other things or other things are affected or impacted. Um yeah, so that just all like sat in my head, um and I think a lot of times people don't think about those things. And it does seem like the deaths have happened very suddenly. Like it's not a slow, like these have been such sudden deaths. We don't know exactly why, but they've been so sudden. You're just doing whatever you're doing and then suddenly you're not. So that's just where I was like, do I want to be doing bodybuilding? Do I want to be competing in bodybuilding?
Well, I thought of one more question too, right before we wrap things up. I mean, obviously, when you're a bodybuilder, I mean, you have fans that are fans of you because you're a bodybuilder. But now that you're not competing anymore, do you find it's difficult now, knowing that like some people will know you no matter what you do the rest of your life, just as the bodybuilder? Do you find it's hard to sort of distance yourself from that? I mean, not just like distance it because like you're embarrassed, but I mean just like distance yourself because like no, that's not what I'm doing anymore, but I'm still in shape.
I think it's annoying that if I sometimes feel, and it's, this problem with social media, it is why I've started to do more lives, but doing the Wednesday readings, which I'm not consistent. I need to be consistent. Sometimes I just don't even want to be on camera. I, I think it annoys me that people put so much stock into how I look, and I, I want people to pay attention to me as an intellectual and intelligent person. Um, I think I'm pretty smart.
Yeah, I don't think of you as a bodybuilder. I think of you as just a great conversationalist who happens to have done bodybuilding.
Yeah, and I think that for fans who followed me for a long time, a lot of times I'll hear, I came to your page because I like your physique, but I stuck around because of the things that you write about and what you say. But some people, I can definitely say that I think that if I were still competing, definitely my following would be a lot greater. And people seem to want to see my physique and want to see pictures of, at- from when I was competing before. But there's a part of me that I just don't feel like it. I don't want to hear about what people think about how I used to look, and I don't want to hear what people think about how I do look. But I think some of that is because I'm going through that stage of, well, I'm aging and it's all fading and it's all going to fade and it's all going to disappear. And there's going to come this moment when I don't look anything like I used to look because I'm just going to be this old woman.
You'll be the 70-year-old doing like curls and stuff like that in the retirement home, or the 80-year-old just like, oh yeah, there's Jody. She's got to get her workout and stuff like that. That's it'll be at least something like that. It's just,
That, but that's making light of for women
oh, I know.
of skin texture is changes and things don't sit where they
Yep.
used to sit, and you see lines or you see things just where you are understanding that your body is on this journey and it's at this particular leg of the journey. And I guess that's really part of what I was saying, that by the time I reach 50, I want to feel more comfortable with the fact that I am on this journey. And I spent so much of my younger years trying to meet an ideal for this vessel, this body, when there's so much more to me, that I put so much time and effort into the physical part of it, and being judged on the physical part of it, and I have such a hard time with that. Um and so these next, hopefully 50 years, that would be nice. um I want that time and energy. I want to be able to keep up with the physical part of it, but I want to put that energy into the mental and intellectual part of it, and feeling okay when that day comes and I look in the mirror and it's all just, the air has gone out of my body and it doesn't look anything like it did, and being okay with it. Social media makes that hard.
Oh, 100%. And yeah, it's just, I honestly wish you and hope you find that out of you in the next year, and just come to terms with that, because yeah, it's, I always tell people, it's like, just the fact that you were even born in the first place is you're the luckiest thing on the planet. Just that you were that one thing that made it up there and was able to grow and become and just live this life. I mean, it's such a blessing, and it's so just lucky to be here. But yeah, just, I mean, and turning 50, I mean, hey, that comes with a lot of age and wisdom that we can clearly see from talking to you that you had. I can doubt, I doubt that if you were 27, just like me, and we're having this conversation, you wouldn't be as enlightened and as, you know, well knowledgeable in a lot of things. But again, you know, everyone go and check her out on her Instagram. I love, go and listen to her on her Wednesdays when she does her readings too, because I have started doing that now. I listened to her last night before I had her on today, and they're great. And again, yeah, everyone just go and just realize with her, this is one thing that I want from all my guests too. If they're a bodybuilder, that should only be a bare minimum of what you think of them as a human being. There's so much more to people than just the way that they look and what they do as their profession. As we can tell with Jodi, especially, where there's just so much more to that than just the outside looks. And that's what I appreciate most about having Jodi on, is that she really helps with that, just help making people realize that, like, hey, there's so much more to someone than just the way that they look and what they do. And, you know, hopefully a lot more people realize that. But again, you guys, and again, Jodi, I mean, thank you so much for all this. And you're welcome to come on anytime. And I look forward to talking to you again.
Well, I really appreciate it and thank you so much.
Absolutely. And this is Ryan Johnson, DD on the spot, signing off. Have a great day, everyone.